At the beginning of the movie, we're taken to 1941. At that time, there was a group of people on an incredibly long journey, covering 6,400 kilometers just by walking. Just imagine how exhausting that must have been. After that, the story goes back a few years earlier, specifically September 1939. At that time, Hitler, the Nazi leader, attacked Poland until the country was split into two parts. Then we see an officer named Janusz being interrogated by the Soviets. He is accused of being a Polish army spy. At first he denies it, but suddenly, everything is exposed. His wife, who has been intimidated, finally admits that he really is a foreign spy. In the end, he has to accept a 20-year prison sentence in Siberia. Now we're shown the conditions in the Siberian prison camp that's extremely cold, with temperatures dropping to -40 degrees Celsius. He has to live his life there. The camp chief explains that anyone who tries to escape will definitely fail. The location is in the middle of Siberia, far from any settlements, and the weather is extreme. Just walking alone could kill you. After that, all the prisoners have their heads shaved, one by one. At night, the prisoners receive their food rations, but the food is far from enough, and many prisoners suffer from malnutrition. He feels sorry for a starving prisoner and gives him his own food. But that kindness actually puts him at risk. A man named Mr. Smith warns him that here, you shouldn't be too kind to others, yourself matters more. He then becomes friends with a prisoner named Khabarov, a former adult film actor. They start sharing stories about their respective cases.
58-10.
On the other side, there's a group of prisoners called the Orki, the most feared professional criminals there. They're so brutal that even the guards are reluctant to bother them and instead give them fairly decent treatment. One day, a member of the Orki named Valka kills another prisoner just to take his clothes, which he uses for gambling. Extremely cruel. The next day, all the prisoners start working. He is assigned to chop down trees. Because of hunger, he even tries eating tree bark just to survive. At night, the prisoners entertain themselves in various ways, like telling each other stories. Mr. Smith is fixing his shoes, while Khabarov helps him get rid of lice by burying him in a pile of ice. Khabarov then tells him that maybe they could escape by heading south. It's a huge risk, but they're ready to try.
My associate. Someone with this. We are about 500 kilometers.
The next day, a heavy snowstorm hits. Everyone is freezing until Mr. Smith invites them to take shelter in the forest. The guard forbids it, but the prisoners still go, because the forest is the only place that's warmer. Meanwhile, the other prisoners build shelters from tree branches and use the moment to get to know each other. That night, Janusz is reassigned to a coal mine. The work is much harder than before, to the point that his body is completely exhausted and he starts hallucinating. But all the hallucinations disappear when the guards beat him to snap him back to reality. After that, Janusz tells Mr. Smith about his escape plan with Khabarov. Mr. Smith says the plan is impossible because he knows Khabarov doesn't have the guts to escape at all. But in the end, Mr. Smith decides to join because he feels Janusz is truly serious. Janusz then meets Khabarov and asks him to start the escape immediately. Khabarov hesitates because he feels their preparation isn't ready yet. Janusz tries to convince him that he can help because he has strong survival skills. Suddenly, Valka shows up, forcing them to stop talking. On the other side, a prisoner named Kazik and a priest named Voss are also planning to escape. Meanwhile, Mr. Smith tries to bribe a technician to help them determine the right time to make the escape plan succeed. That night, Valka threatens to kill Janusz if he isn't included in the escape. In the end, Janusz agrees to let him join. Mr. Smith starts shutting down the generator, marking the beginning of their escape. The guards quickly realize they've escaped and try to chase them. The weather is terrible. A massive snowstorm hits, but thanks to Janusz's survival skills, they manage to get through it. The next day, they've already escaped as far as 30 kilometers. They divide their supplies fairly. The 7 people in the escape are Janusz, Smith, Kazik, Voss, Thomas, Zoran, and Valka. Smith actually doesn't agree with Valka joining, because Valka is very dangerous and unpredictable.
going to inform.
Now they arrive at a grassland. Janusz uses the sunlight to determine their next direction, Lake Baikal, which is still quite far. The journey is estimated to take about 4 weeks, all on foot. Along the way, various problems arise. Their supplies start running low and won't last until the lake. Kozak's eyesight starts getting worse, but they still believe in the plan and light a campfire. Unfortunately, in the morning, Voss finds Kozak dead from the cold. They immediately bury him there. A week after Kozak's death, winter starts to end, but they've all run out of supplies. Janusz and the others decide to rest in a cave. Thomas, who is good at drawing, tries to tell their story on the cave wall, while Zoran, who is almost hopeless, just stays silent, hoping someone will bring food. That night, Valka suggests a crazy idea to Janusz, choosing who should be sacrificed for their survival. Janusz strongly refuses. For him, it's impossible to sacrifice a companion.
Artist. Or soft. Funny man.
More food when we get the lake back.
The next morning, Smith quickly wakes everyone up. It turns out a pack of wolves is eating a deer. They immediately drive the wolves away and start eating the deer eagerly. The following day, Janusz decides to search for the lake alone. He promises to return after finding it, but before leaving, he asks Smith to be more careful with Valka while he's gone. Even without bringing supplies, he stays determined. Finally, after climbing a high hill, he sees that the lake is close. Janusz quickly returns to his group and brings the good news that the lake is nearby. Everyone rushes toward the hill, but suddenly, their journey is interrupted because someone is following them. They almost attack the person, but it turns out she is a woman who escaped from a Russian farm. Afraid that she will slow them down, they leave her behind. Finally, they reach the edge of the lake. Everyone runs around happily. When they see a trapped deer, they immediately catch it for dinner. Now their food supply is quite plentiful. Voss, who realizes the woman is still following them, invites her to eat together. It turns out, her name is Irena. The next day, they continue their journey. They hesitate to cross the frozen lake, so Irena decides to go first, followed by Janusz and the others. In the middle of the journey, Irena starts telling Smith about her life. But Smith, who is good at reading people, quickly realizes that her story is a lie. They arrive at the outskirts of a town and have to go through the forest because the townspeople would definitely report their escape for a reward from the camp. At that moment, Valka is nowhere to be seen, so they decide to wait for him. A while later, Valka returns, carrying supplies he stole from nearby houses. Thanks to that, they can get through the night with full stomachs. There, Irena starts telling the truth about herself. It turns out she is the daughter of a Polish communist family that was arrested in 1937. She was taken to an orphanage with her brother, but he died from a severe illness. That event made her decide to escape from the orphanage.
I remember that Polish name.
The next day, they face a new problem. Mosquitoes around the lake keep swarming them. Strangely, the locals aren't bothered by mosquitoes at all. Zoran asks one of the locals, and they finally learn how to keep mosquitoes away by hanging tree bark around their necks. They are almost at the Siberian railway tracks. After resting for a while, Irena treats Mr. Smith's injured foot. Then, they continue their journey until they reach the edge of the tracks. They decide to wait until night, because crossing during the day could expose their escape. That evening, they continue their journey again. Valka then says goodbye to Janusz because he decides to continue his journey on his own. The next day, they find a gate and keep walking until they arrive at an abandoned monastery. There, Voss tells Irena that he is a priest from Latvia. But he once tried to kill a guard who wanted to shut down his place of worship, and that's the reason he ended up in the camp. Their journey continues, but suddenly a group of people appears. Luckily, they don't hurt anyone and only ask where they're going. After that, they just leave. On the way, a Mongolian boy gives them a bag of drinking water before leaving. Now, they have to cross the vast Gobi Desert. The next day, their focus remains the same, crossing the Gobi Desert. They're not even sure they can survive it. In the middle of the journey, an argument breaks out between Mr. Smith and Janusz. Smith is afraid they will all die in the desert. Suddenly, Voss sees steam from a water source and immediately approaches it. Everyone runs there because they're thirsty. They're confused about whether to stay at the water source or continue the journey. Janusz insists they must keep moving because staying there means certain death. They collect as much water as possible, but suddenly a massive sandstorm hits. They have to quickly build some kind of protection. They finally make it through the sandstorm, but a lot of their water supplies are lost. They start worrying about their survival. The next morning, they walk again. Their water is running low, and exhaustion causes Irena to collapse. Her legs are swollen from the long journey. Everyone feels sorry for her, because she's the only woman in the escape. Thomas tries to carry her, but she asks to just be laid down. Her body looks very pale and weak, until she eventually dies there. They are devastated, but there's nothing they can do except bury her and continue the journey. The next day, it's Thomas's turn to start having leg problems. His friends try to help, but he still struggles to keep going and eventually falls behind. That night, Thomas dies from hunger and thirst, just like Irena. Mr. Smith is also severely dehydrated. Janusz and the others try their best to help him. But a bit of hope appears. Zoran follows a snake that passes by, and they manage to find water from that place and catch the snake to eat, slightly easing their hunger.
Not bad.
That night, Mr. Smith admits he's losing hope. Janusz calms him down and assures him that they will reach India. Mr. Smith then tells his past. He once brought his son to Russia, but was arrested for being suspected as a spy, and his son was brutally killed. The next morning, Mr. Smith has recovered enough and continues the journey with Janusz and the others. They reach the Great Wall of China, then continue to the Himalayas. There, a monk invites them to stay at a monastery. The monks kindly give them food and ask them to rest first, continuing the journey in the spring. At the monastery, they start talking about their plans. Mr. Smith will go to America. Voss wants to become a fighter and die with honor, while Janusz just wants to keep walking.
And you, Janusz?
A few weeks later, they arrive in India. There, they are treated well and are sent back to their respective homes. At the end of the movie, Janusz is seen meeting and forgiving his wife. Even though she made him go through difficult times, he is finally able to make peace and move on. The movie ends.